In the annals of crime, few names evoke intrigue and dread quite like Pablo Escobar. Even the mention of his name conjures up images of a man shrouded in mystery and imbued with unimaginable power. Born in the humble town of Rio Negro, Colombia, Escobar was far from the world of wealth and influence he would later come to dominate. His ascent from obscurity is one of the most compelling tales in the annals of true crime. Escobar didn't just rise to prominence, he skyrocketed, leaving a trail of violence and corruption in his wake. He became a figure of such influence, such wealth, that he is still considered the most affluent criminal in history. His empire was built on fear, yet he was regarded by some as a Robin Hood-like figure, his narrative further shrouded in paradoxes and contradictions. But who was this man really, and how did he rise to such terrifying heights? Escobar's journey to notoriety began in a place you might not expect. Picture a young boy growing up in the rural outskirts of Medellin, Colombia. Born to a schoolteacher and a farmer, Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was the third of 7 children, and his family was steeped in poverty. This was a world where opportunities were scarce and survival was a daily struggle. Escobar, however, was not one to accept his circumstances. With a burning desire to provide for his family and escape the clutches of poverty, he took to the streets. It started with petty theft, selling stolen tombstones and smuggling contraband cigarettes. But for young Pablo, this was just the beginning. As he grew older, his ambitions grew larger and his operations more sophisticated. He began to dabble in the world of narcotics, initially with marijuana, but soon he discovered a more lucrative commodity: cocaine. Colombia's geographical location, sandwiched between the Pacific and the Caribbean, made it a key transit point for drugs heading to the United States. Escobar saw an opportunity and seized it. But he didn't stop at just trafficking. In the late 70s, he formed what would become one of the most infamous criminal organizations in history: the Medellin Cartel. With an army of loyalists and a network of corrupt officials, Escobar's influence grew exponentially. His operations expanded, his wealth multiplied, and his name began to instill fear and respect in equal measure. Yet, his rise was not without bloodshed. Violence became a tool, a means to an end. He was ruthless, unforgiving, and ready to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to his empire. It was this ruthless drive towards power and wealth that would soon catapult him from obscurity to notoriety. The Medellin Cartel, under Escobar's leadership, would soon become a force to be reckoned with. At the height of his power, Escobar was more than just a criminal, he was a kingpin. Let's delve into the era when Pablo Escobar, the notorious Colombian drug lord, ruled the roost. The Medellin Cartel, under his unyielding control, held an iron grip on the global cocaine trade. It was not just a criminal organization, it was a well-oiled machine, a behemoth that churned out an estimated 80% of the cocaine smuggled into the United States. Escobar's empire was built on more than just cocaine, it was built on fear. His reign was marked by a ruthless and relentless campaign of terror. His tactics were brutal and horrifying, designed to keep his enemies in check and law enforcement at bay. He orchestrated kidnappings, demanded ransoms, and when his demands were not met, he did not hesitate to resort to bombings. His message was clear: cross the Medellin Cartel and face the dire consequences. Yet it wasn't all fear and terror. Escobar was a paradox. With his immense wealth, he wielded influence not just in the underworld but also in the corridors of power. He was known to have spent millions on public works projects, building schools, hospitals, and even churches. He was a Robin Hood figure to many, a benefactor who used his ill-gotten gains to help the poor. But don't be fooled, this was not altruism, it was a strategy, a way to buy loyalty and silence, a way to create a smokescreen behind which he could operate with impunity. It was all part of his grand design, a design that allowed him to amass an estimated fortune of $30 billion, making him one of the wealthiest men in the world. Escobar's reign seemed unstoppable, but the tides were about to turn. Every empire has its fall, and Escobar's was no exception. His reign was not to go unchallenged. The world had started to take notice, and the wheels of justice began to turn against him. Internationally, pressure was mounting. The United States, particularly affected by the influx of cocaine, led an intense campaign to bring Escobar to justice. Domestically, he was losing control too. The Colombian government, once under his thumb, began to push back, fueled by the public's growing disdain for the violence and chaos that his empire had unleashed. His power began to crumble, and in 1991, Escobar was incarcerated. But even prison could not hold him. His so-called prison, the luxurious La Catedral, was more a fortress than a jail. Yet even from within his gilded cage, he could not maintain control. In 1992 he escaped during a transfer attempt, and spent the next year and a half on the run. The manhunt that followed was relentless. Escobar, once untouchable, was now the prey. The end came on December 2, 1993, when he was cornered on a rooftop in his hometown, Medellin. In a violent shootout with law enforcement, Pablo Escobar, the kingpin of cocaine, met his end. In death as in life, Escobar remained a figure of fascination and horror. His downfall was as dramatic and violent as his rise, a stark reminder of the cost of unchecked ambition and power. Years after his death, Escobar's shadow still looms large. His life, filled with audacious power and chilling ruthlessness, echoes in the annals of history and the heart of his homeland, Colombia. His name, a symbol of terror and authority, has become an emblem of the violent epic of the country's past. The impact of his actions, far from fading, has carved itself into the world's consciousness and permanently marked the fabric of society. Colombia, the epicenter of his reign, continues to grapple with the profound repercussions of his rule. The conflict against drug trafficking, a war Escobar orchestrated with relentless brutality, continues relentlessly, a tangible reminder of the immense power he once held. The societal effects, though, are far more profound and lasting. A generation of Colombians grew up under the ominous shadow of his empire, their lives forever shaped by the continuous cycle of violence and fear that characterized his reign. These citizens witnessed firsthand the horrifying realities of his reign, a reign marked by bloodshed and devastation. But it's not just within Colombia's borders where Escobar's legacy remains. His life and death, shrouded in mystery and intrigue, have been immortalized in popular culture. His tale is narrated in countless television series and movies, each rendition contributing to the enigma that surrounds this infamous drug lord. His story, a mix of power and terror, has become a narrative of the brutal realities of the drug trade. His journey from a petty criminal to the world's most feared drug lord serves as a grim reminder of the catastrophic consequences of uncontrolled ambition. These tales of his life serve to underscore the devastating impacts of the drug trade and the lives it ruins in its wake. The name Pablo Escobar has become synonymous with power, terror, and brutal authority, serving as a stark reminder of the destructive potential of human ambition. His rise and fall, a narrative of unchecked power and brutal force, has become a cautionary tale told across the globe. His story serves as a chilling warning of the destructive effects of uncontrolled ambition and the havoc it can wreak on society. His name continues to reverberate in public discourse, his legacy a chilling testament to the dark allure of crime. The world continues to grapple with the remnants of his reign, his influence reaching far beyond the geographical confines of his empire. Pablo Escobar, a name synonymous with power, terror, and intrigue, continues to haunt the world, a chilling testament to the dark allure of crime.